So what was your degree in planning? Oh, there is a degree in planning?
Yeah,
I just
city and
read that.
regional planning.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a focus in environmental planning, but I don't really use that here. I know a lot of people don't even know it's a thing. Like, you're an event planner?
You want to be like have read his job one day, like be a director?
We'll see.
Yeah. Go corporate.
I guess probably that's the ultimate goal, but I'm way off from that, so it's not even on the list.
So Clemson, are you from the South originally then?
No, I'm from here. I'm around here. I went to Gonzaga for my undergraduate.
Hey, where's that?
Washington State.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And then I actually worked this summer in the Smoky Mountains in their visitor center, which is
North Carolina, right?
North Carolina, Tennessee. So it's pretty close to Clemson. So when I was looking at grad schools, it came up, and I was like, yeah, I'll go there.
Cool.
Comparatively cheaper than other places, so.
I took my last 2 hours at U of I took leisure studies, but I think that's not as substantive as planning, I think. But they said that's for people who want to be like work for the Department of Interior and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh well, shoot, they have a degree for that. That's nice. Did you get you went in your mailbox?
I actually like the carpet up here. Imagine my grandma's place.
That's what?
My grandmother's place.
Yeah, I think we should appropriate money to take away that scratch in front of the mayor's. You see I think it was like a kid just on.
Oh.
I know, the carpet's like green. I've been in like council chambers where it's like, you're in some like high-tech corporate boardroom or something.
How did you get that?
I gotten one.
I didn't get one.
Here.
Oh, here, I got it.
Oh, okay. I was just taking from.
Yeah, no, that's nice. Very nice.
Who's there?
Well, that'll keep him busy.
Oh. A prairie.
My.
Are they doing that?
That's native to Illinois.
Are they doing the conservation at home thing? Yeah.
My mother-in-law does that.
Yeah, the Conservation Foundation. I do.
plant.
Whoever owns the building I live in does it.
Yeah, exactly.
Rest of your coffee go okay?
Yeah, I want really good. Yeah, good conversation. Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Oh, do you have the rest of your meetings with the department?
Here's my thing here.
Yeah, I never got one. Tracy said she's gonna look at the
Scanned
archive.
and file it under here, right here, David.
Yeah. Figure we have the same thing, okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
did you have the
printed
rest of
everything
your
out, so I
department
just
meetings?
wanna, it's pretty straightforward, but I just want. Got a museum and.
When do you finish your department meetings?
My what?
Department meetings, when do you finish those?
Tomorrow, I do 3 of them tomorrow.
There's really three of them, another gas station.
Hey, oh, I didn't get that.
No, you didn't,
Oh,
'cause it's not
oh,
your
it's on
one.
your one, yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, can I see it?
yeah, it's toward the Mid-America thing.
Yeah, we'll get these when stuff is in our
This is a notice that goes out within 200 feet
Oh, I
of,
see.
property
Zoning
owners.
type
Yeah,
thing.
right, so there's a little change.
Gross. Wait, where's Ledge Fieldgate?
But Mid-America.
Oh.
You know where that is?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, you take this all the way to go to the Ace House.
Oh, so the shell's over here, and
Yeah,
then that other place
yeah,
over there?
yeah.
What's it?
Thank you.
Gas stations are having a hard time getting.
Yeah, I'm just getting my presentation pulled up now.
Casey's
Oh,
fuel.
wait, who's the,
Casey's.
no, but who's the,
Mhm.
Mario, the guy from the other?
No, I think, somebody talked to me about this property, well, it's just selling it, I don't know who, is they who the owner is?
Hmm.
No,
Maybe it's
maybe in the details, get all the names.
hopefully.
It's Casey, so that's different, that's not his brand.
That's actually kind of more like a, almost like a store in many ways.
It's kind of a
right?
country store.
Yeah.
It is, oh, yeah, it sounds, I see it all the
Yeah.
time.
A store with,
They have them out in Hampshire.
yeah. Yeah, I was at a ribbon cutting for one in Oregon, like 2 years ago.
For a Casey?
Yeah, because or like 3 years ago when I was the regional manager, the mayor's like, hey, you want to come to a ribbon cutting with
Oh,
me? I'm
that
like,
Oregon, I
okay.
thought you meant state of Oregon.
No,
Yeah, this is a store, secondary to a gas station.
But that used to be a bank. So what's that, what are they gonna do with the second floor?
I think that they're going to demolish, none of it's being converted.
No, I don't.
What's the current zoning? It's like BCBR, I imagine, right?
Yeah, DC.
So it's special use, right? Because aren't gas stations special use now?
It's a nice.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's prove it. The guy, what did we use for a spear on the corner
You
there?
know what? You're not getting training. I said gas station. 10 years, you're not gonna get a 10-year mortgage.
So how's this guy getting his money?
I don't know.
Hopefully nothing goes wrong, yeah.
But, you know,
Why do you have so much more room than me?
new guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at this.
I have tons of room. I have a thing here. Put your thing back.
It's kind of like being on a cul-de-sac, you know, you're on the curve.
This is,
I'm on the
I got
curb.
this thing in the way. Usually wear a coat. Huh? For committee, you don't have to. You just wear like a,
I know, my wife said it looked better with a coat on.
How are you?
I usually wear one with right.
Did you have a good meeting with, planning? Did you have a meeting with Rita and Russ today? I did, yeah.
So who did you meet with today then? Who did you meet with the directors did you meet with today?
Being in person.
No, tomorrow.
What I'm noticing now
Three tomorrow.
is you've got certain people that are like totally back. Like, I'm back.
project.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not gonna be, sign the papers.
Yeah, yeah. There's gonna be a lot of due diligence. There's gonna be a lot of, yeah.
A lot of looking into.
Oh, okay.
I know. I met with, Laura and, Chris from the business line this morning. Yeah, so that was.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, good. Yeah, but, Laura's my neighbor. Yeah. And Wilford lives over in, yeah.
I know, because I was like, yeah, I'm over Kingsville. Oh, I know where you are. I started laughing. I'm like,
I just ran across it.
and I'm like, full disclosure, I'm like, I'm not great with first names, I'm really good with last names, and I'm even better with location.
Okay.
You sound like a person who just ran across. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
So it's kind of an intro.
Yes, everything should be okay, right?
Good.
You know.
You got surprises for me or anything I gotta know about?
Did they talk? I don't see it on the
No.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it come back.
I don't.
That would have been their chance to kind of tell you.
Yeah.
Dave's gonna be on Zoom and Todd is, gonna be here.
They didn't bring it up at all.
What he told
Okay,
me.
that's a good sign. Hey, Ron.
Hello, Rita.
How are you?
Good evening.
No, they did. It was very, very high level. Like, I had questions.
Hi.
Yes, 11 o'clock? Yeah, that's perfect. Sounds good.
Interesting. Good, how are you?
12, yes, they read the yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Are you the new rep? Oh, you are. Oh, well, that makes sense. You would have that.
Okay.
So,
Is it in person or is it?
they're.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I had a list of questions.
Oh, good for you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of a thorn in Wilford's side, but it's all right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'll wear that badge.
You know, leisure reading, you know? I appreciate it. That's the kind of where to go.
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
Yeah. Other than the emails, no, but not in,
I'll wear that.
I did on the phone and then I did the emails, yeah.
Listen,
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's why that second one, I was just like, that's why she called, because she knew that it was that, you know, so she's like, what's, okay.
And,
Yeah.
Hidden Monument, right?
I know.
St. Charles.
Where was that at?
Yeah.
On the east side, coming in St. Charles, we don't
For a year, I didn't see the year, I just scanned it. Okay. He did say that she left a voicemail for him, so.
She's on the wrong side of the street. This side would say, thanks for calling.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, we can't just overrule for, I think she thinks we could just like, you know, do something and it negates it's already happened, you know, so.
Will the full agenda
In the
pop
middle,
up on this?
in the median.
Is there a medium in there?
That's fine.
Oh, huge.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
And it's good size as you come into town, and narrows,
Okay.
you know, as you get, but as you're coming into town.
No, I see it now. I wasn't
And it's the same as they have,
Yeah, and then the thing on the back has this.
you know,
Gotcha.
so I'd ask Pete, and he goes, well.
But it's nice because it breaks it down too, so you can just click on the agenda.
No, that's fine.
No,
Just firewood.
Another guy. Now you're telling me.
Different format, that's all.
Anyway, so he said he has to get special permission, obviously, by that.
Oh, yeah, because.
And they're kind of, on it. He says, but if you talk to your other East Side guys.
No, it's fine. No, we're good, we're good. I just wanted,
It'll give you a little extra,
Oh.
this is
you know.
perfect.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, okay,
No.
yeah. Because Dan was fine. Just talk to
Yeah, maybe like.
Oh, do you think that was?
Yes.
Well, he's quick to tell me, the budget. He goes, but if nothing else, until we, probably wouldn't have to do it, until we redesign all of them. You know, like do a new, but he has the old one, that he could put up. You know, so I said, oh,
Wouldn't take that much.
no, that wouldn't, no, right.
Or something that you're in St. Charles.
Yeah. Except for that little green sign with the population number on it, you know, that.
Because on Third Street there's one.
Oh, yeah, there's everywhere else, everywhere else.
Right on Gray Street, there's a sign.
Yep, 3125.
Is there one?
Yeah, and Kirk Road has one.
Oh, 31 has one.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's one on 25. There's one that says Geneva, I think. Is there one for St. Charles? And there isn't one on 7th Avenue.
No, it would just be the main branch. Yeah. So,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
yeah, I did have that all written down.
Okay.
Housekeeping score. You know, when you're here, we used to have, and that's kind of a East Gateway thing.
I don't think so. It's
You know,
yeah.
whatever. So,
Right.
and there was one.
So I think that must be when they did 64.
That's when they fight. Right. We didn't have a meeting with us. You know, remember
Right.
that it was just the, and so then they
Yeah, please, Chair.
put in that nice curb look and all that, but right up to the private property, so there's no show green space. It's a gully.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Green,
Yeah,
that means
yeah.
the drainage.
So anyway, okay. And went to the four of us, and then, you know, the East Siders, so to say. Look at the political will. Fine, we need political will for all the people. So,
Yeah, you never know.
you never know. I'm gonna at least start.
State of Illinois.
Yeah, no. But he said, then you know, they said no. We'll start to do it like that. You know, something like that. Especially because everybody knows Facebook.
I know,
Yeah,
how you
yeah.
can deny us.
Yeah.
Yet, other the streets on 64 have one. How they could justify saying no to us.
Right. So,
But don't underestimate.
no, I will not. I know.
Either.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pessimist. Yes.
You really.
Stop. Ugh.
With the time being 7 o'clock on May 10th, I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order. Can I please have roll call?
Stellato.
Here.
Lakaitis.
Here.
Hayleitner. Here. Mongard.
Here.
Lencioni. Petrilla.
Here.
Whipple.
Here.
Fessner.
Here.
Weber.
Weber present. I'm assuming we have quorum. We have enough people here tonight. First of all, my name's Steve Weber. This is my first P&D committee meeting. Hopefully, it looks like we have a relatively small agenda, so hopefully we move along nicely and everything works out okay. Item 3, omnibus vote. Obviously, we don't have anything for that, so we can move on to the item 4, community and economic development. A, looks like we have a report from Sierra Miller to tell us about the special use for, looks like Barrington Motor Sales RV. Go ahead, Sierra.
Good evening. My name is Sierra Miller. I'm the city's economic development planner. Tonight you're reviewing an application by Sean Bransky, president of Barrington Motor Sales RV, who's filed a request for special use to establish a boat, camper, and recreational vehicle sales and service facility at 3825 Commerce Drive. This property is located in the Shanahan PUD, and that use is considered a special use in that PUD. The facility, or the company would be operating primarily as a satellite online, shifting more towards online sales. So most storage is going to be handled on an off-site storage lot. There is the ability to store some vehicles indoors in the warehouse component, and they can use the excess parking stalls for vehicle display. The Plan Commission held a public hearing and reviewed the special use on May 4th and voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend approval. The applicant is requesting of the council that the council grant a small extension to the 12-month lapse deadline to occupy the building by June 1st, 2022, because there is a tenant currently leasing the building through May of next year. With that, happy to take any questions, and the applicant is also present tonight if there's any questions that are better directed towards him.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? I know I have a couple. Does anyone have any questions? No? So, so online business. You guys currently are off of Lake Street?
We are.
Yes? So you're going to shut down that whole operation and move everything over here?
Well, for the most part.
Yeah?
Our company, we've been in that location for 30 years. Our company is 56 years old. Hi, by the way, I'm Sean Bransky.
So you're not the founder then, if it's 56
No,
years
our
old.
dad was the founder, and Brian and I have been running it. This is my brother Brian.
Hello, Brian.
And we've been running it since '92. And we're kind of at the point where we've been very successful. We have a great reputation, but we have been working 6 days a week for 30 years. And it's time for us to scale down a little bit and give some time to ourselves and our family. And we do know that we can broaden our online exposure and use this facility that would suit us just fine and our customers just fine to perform the level of business that we want to do out of there. So it'll be different. We do know that it doesn't have exposure.
Can you turn on the podium camera? Sorry. Alderman had asked if the podium camera can go on. Sorry. We couldn't see it, just hear you.
No problem. And so we feel that this facility would be just fine to work out of as we broaden our online platform, which we can broaden quite a bit and do quite well. So this building we've owned the building. It's been in my family for a long time, so it will be owner occupied and maintained properly. And we're kind of excited to do this.
How many units a month do you think you can sell out of that location online? Like projections or anything?
Right now, currently, and revenue-wise, we do $15 million a year. We do expect to have a sales projection out of this location, probably somewhere between $5 and $10 million. What that equates in the number of units, we have such a wide range of price points, so it can be anywhere from 5 to 15 units a month. There may be months that we do more than that. I think it's just what level do we want to do is hopefully where we'll be at.
Sure.
Yeah, but we still want, we love what we do, and we have a very large customer base. So we know that just off of our customer base, and we have a lot of repeat business, we'll be able to do quite well just with that.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
And all online sales, everything will take place out of that location?
Everything will take place out of that location. That will really be our only location. We will have a holding lot to hold additional inventory and maybe some storage for a couple customers. So, but no, all transactions will happen out of that facility and location.
Wonderful. Okay. And I think if I recall from the planning commission meeting, you both reside in St. Charles as well?
We do. Yep. I'm a 25-year resident of St. Charles. My brother Brian also lives in St. Charles. We've owned this building has been in our family for 20 plus years, so we know the building well and the location and area, and like to give some of that tax revenue back to where we live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I'm with you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question real quick.
Go ahead, Alderman Fairlaner.
What's there now?
Right now, it's a company called RV6. That's our tenant. Their lease expires on May 30th, 2022, and they're in the manufacturing business of making performance exhausts for foreign cars. So you probably hear some of these foreign cars that maybe you don't like the sound of, and that's what they do. And they make those, and they're successful.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Alderman Warble.
How many RVs can you fit in that facility?
So in that building, we're going to try to really focus on smaller type vehicles from what we do now. Right now, we're up to big 45-foot buses and things. But with the small van camper and small, what they call Class C type motorhomes, is going to be our focus. So we should be able to fit about 7 to 9 vehicles inside the building and a few outside as well. So we plan on having maybe 10, if we're lucky, 12 vehicles on site at any given time.
Wonderful. Any more questions? Seeing none, I believe there's a resolution You have a question? Go ahead.
Just regarding your request for an extension, correct?
Yes.
Based on what's here. Point of order, would we need to include that in the recommended motion as well? Because it's not in there currently. If we all agree to that, I mean, I have no problem with that.
To amend, to get that included?
I'll move to include the 12-month extension, is that right?
So yes, I guess the special use would be for 12 months, and that would give us before June 1st of next year, and the tenant is there till May 30th of next year, so we would need to move in June 1st. So we're about just a couple weeks away from that. So that would be a small extension.
I'd move to approve with the extension.
Okay, so we have a move by Alderman Petrilla,
Yeah.
seconded by...
Second
by Alderman Payleitner. So we need to have a vote on that and then the actual resolution, correct? No? No? Yes? No?
No, yes. Actually, this is exact solution recommendation. You need to make a motion, yes, correct.
As amended?
As amended.
Yes, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Stellato,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bongard,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
It's moved, it's all good. Moving on.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a recommendation to approve facade improvements from the Historic Preservation Commission.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hitzman. I'm a city planner. The first resolution we have, or the first item we have, is Karen and David Lando have requested a facade improvement grant for their property located at 201 Cedar Avenue. The project scope includes exterior repair and replacement of siding, windowsills, trim, painting, and glazing. The Historic Commission reviewed the project and unanimously voted to recommend approval based on the significance of the structure, the visible corner location of the building, and its proximity to downtown. The Commission stated that this is an ideal use for grant funds to restore a significant building. The total cost of the project is $29,740, and the project is eligible to receive up to $14,870 based on 50% reimbursement for maintenance utilizing historic preservation practices. And I can answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody? Oh,
Just a question, a general question, and this relates to the next one too. Will all the funds be exhausted for this fiscal year? Well, actually, are these for last fiscal year or this fiscal year?
So this would be for the upcoming fiscal year that started May 1, and I think we'll have a little less than $5,000 left after these two projects.
For the rest of the
fiscal year, correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And the grants are a first come, first served basis. It's outlined in the grant application materials. So we usually recommend, if I know somebody is looking to apply for a grant, that they get in early because, this could happen.
any other questions on that? All right, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve this resolution.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Bessner, seconded by Alderman Petrilla. Can I please have roll call vote on that? Do I have to do a roll call every time?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Stellato,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bongard,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
All righty, that passes. Moving right along.
So the second item is that Amber and Terry Grove have requested a facade improvement grant for their property located at 11 North 3rd Street. The project scope includes replacing the vinyl exterior siding on the south and west sides of the building with a James Hardy siding that is more compatible with the original structure. The Historic Commission reviewed the application on May 5th And prior to the grant discussion, the Historic Commission reviewed the Certificate of Appropriateness, or COA, application for the project scope. They approved the COA with the conditions that the existing trim will remain and that the trim pieces that divide the storefronts be 4 to 6 inches in width. The conditions will be applied to the grant application as well. The Historic Commission reviewed the grant request and unanimously recommended to approve the grant, stating that although this is not a historic building based on age, because it is in a prominent location in the downtown and its appearance will be improved by the project, that is worthy of grant funds. The total cost of the project is $21,250, and the project is eligible to receive up to $10,625 based on 50% reimbursement for an exterior rehabilitation project involving new improvements.
Wonderful.
And again, we can answer any question any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Alderman.
Yes.
Alderman Payleitner.
I have two quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that in the packet there was a line that says this much is covered by insurance and this much isn't. Have we ever done that before? Like become an insurance default grant coverage?
I don't believe so, and Russ can. Yeah, I don't believe that's ever happened. But in this case, insurance, I guess, was willing to cover half of the building. So if the grant didn't cover, we would have 2 sidings that don't match, because I don't think the applicant would have moved forward with replacing the siding that the insurance part wouldn't cover. So in this instance, I think that was part of the Historic Commission's recommendation, noting that if they didn't approve this grant, we might have a building that has 2 different sidings on it. And I don't know if that's really the look that we want in county either.
That brings me to my second question then. I mean, this sounds to me like a maintenance issue. And I know that they've come before us before with maintenance issues. And as a result, we amended our grant process and saying if it's maintenance, it's only 25%.
Correct.
Yeah. Is that the case here? No. So
the Historic Commission recommended based on the 50%, but it is a recommendation. So if City Council felt that it was more in line with the 25%, that is a decision that you could make.
What's your take on it? Is that what you feel like? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. You know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. In this case, you know, I think a maintenance, because it's hard because if they were, I think, repairing kind of the vinyl siding that's on it now, it might be more of a maintenance issue. Since they are upgrading the siding, it is kind of going back to more of that original, what the original structure may have and that original look. You know, it's hard to say whether or not it's kind of one of those things along the fine line. Is it maintenance or is it
and
historical improvement?
Looking at the previous, you know, item, which was clearly, you know, updating a historic building, you know, that's way different than what I see this is fixing some wind damage, you know, that wasn't covered by insurance. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Alderman Werble.
What is the age of the building?
Building 86.
I believe, let's see. The survey has it as 1986.
That's the year it was built, 1986?
According to the architectural survey. Now, we've found that these dates are sometimes inaccurate, but based on when the survey was done and the architect who conducted the survey, that's the general estimate without any kind of further information in terms of the history and looking at the county records and things along those lines.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Alderman Bessner.
And in the past, have we had a situation where the Historic Commission chimed in on a building that's typically not historic, right? It's not registered as historic, correct?
Right. I think a good example, I mean, it's kind of comparative, but the new event wedding center, they got a grant for their addition. So they really weren't doing anything to the historical building. I mean, they were removing some additions that were non-contributing to the structure. So that's also an element of it in terms of grants that have been provided for, Illinois, Eden on the River, their new patio, screened-in patio, also received a historic facade grant for that work. I would say that wasn't exactly work done to the building itself, but a newer structure done that received facade grants as well. Russ, do you know of any? Just kind of those ones, right? Yeah. So for the most part, I think that the grants are usually geared toward older buildings, but the commission did note that because of the location of this building, they felt that the upkeep of it was worthy of the upkeep of the new siding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like there's very strict rules on it. It's kind of up to the planning commission to say, it's in a historic area. There's a lot of leeway, obviously, it sounds like, right? So
there are guidelines that are outlined that the Historic Commission does review. If they're not explicitly stated in what is and isn't covered, it is up to the Historic Commission to kind of determine whether or not a project would fit under which scope. So, like Alderman Payleitner was saying, the eligible improvements for 25% reimbursement would be cleaning, patching, caulking of exterior surfaces, recoating of paint, re-roofing visible structures, spot masonry repairs or tuck pointing, like-in-kind replacement of non-historic elements on a building, whereas the 50% reimbursement would be for repair or restoration of historic features, replacement of deteriorated historic features with like materials or appropriate synthetic materials, which I think is maybe where they came from in this instance, the replacement with appropriate synthetic materials, as opposed to kind of just repairing what would have been there. So there are listed criteria that the Historic Commission normally follows, but again, if it does say, if it's not explicitly listed in this list, it is up to the Historic Commission's discretion, and again, they're ultimately making a recommendation to this council and the council can decide differently if they so choose.
Sure, I understand. Go ahead.
So do we have, is there a record or a percentage of how many of these would classify? I think to your point, Mr. Chairman, so like what percentage of these requests would fall into this is, historic versus, well, there's some leeway based on the criteria. Is it half? Is it, is this par for the course of what we can expect with these types of requests, or is it something outside of the norm?
I think for the most part, you will see ones that are explicitly listed in these building improvements or for 50% or 25% reimbursement. So there, recently we've seen some that have been outside of the norms, the Wedding Center and the Eden on the River. That could be because of COVID-19 and the businesses, hit hard and looking for grant money, that could be part of it. But I think most of the time these grants are provided to businesses that have historic elements, and those historic elements are being repaired and replaced or restored or something along those lines. And especially with the residential grants, we haven't seen any in a while. I think we saw one last year. Typically, those are also going to be kind of by the book grants as well. So it's not unprecedented for the council and the Historic Commission to approve a grant like this, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily common.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah, if there's,
please.
I'm just going to toss it out there.
I like the historical context that you brought to this.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand everything.
I'm just going to throw it out there, Mr. Chairman, that I'm going to make a motion to approve a facade improvement grant at 25% reimbursement.
At 25%?
I will second that motion.
You'll second it? Anyone online want to add anything to this conversation? I'm sorry, I keep ignoring people on the computer. I see you, Mr. Stellato. Do you have a?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Rita, great points. I'm in agreement. I think we might want to look at establishing, Ron, to your point, maybe we need to have a coffer for buildings that are contributing, truly contributing and historic in the district, some that are not. Maybe they don't draw from the same pot. So that's something to look forward, I think, to next year when we get into our budget discussions. But I'm in favor of the motion as well.
At the 25%?
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second to approve this?
Yeah.
Second here.
The second there, to approve this at 25%? You have another comment?
No, I just will add, I mean, to Alderman Sokaitis' point, I will support this as well, because I guess this would kind of, we'd be at the bottom of the barrel essentially, right? This would be saving us a little bit of money in terms of, you know, having other funds to spend later in the year, I guess, so. But I liked Alderman Stallato's idea. We'd need to amend the ordinance, I assume, to essentially split that up, correct?
I see. Okay. I'm sorry, to keep it historic buildings, is that what?
To contributing versus like,
correct.
you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was saying have two separate pots of money for.
Yeah, because then this gray area is, we're essentially like getting rid of the gray area.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Does staff feel as if we approve this at 25%, does the project not happen then?
I have to speak with the building owner. Unfortunately, don't see them here tonight. So I'd have to check with them, and that's something that we can determine if going into the council meeting.
Okay. Well, we have a motion. Go ahead, Ryan.
If we approve this tonight, could they say could they come back and ask for the 50%, or?
They can appeal, right? Yes, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, we could ask the building owner to respond to the committee's recommendation, and when the item is before the city council, we'll provide an update as to what their position is, and then the council can choose to reconsider the grant percentage if you so choose.
Thank you. That's a good point. This isn't the end of the line here.
No,
So, yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to move this along at 25%. Can I please have a roll call on that?
Stellato?
Yes.
Sokaitis?
Yes.
Leitner?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Trillo?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Festner?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last on the list, I had talked with Rita, and I felt like it would be beneficial, and she felt like it would be beneficial to, at least for some of the new council members, to get a little update, report on the economic development within the city. I know some of you that have been on here a long time, you've probably seen all this and heard all this. I just thought there'd be some benefits to watching this, listening to the report. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, at this point, Sierra Miller, our Economic Development Planner, will be walking you through the details of the Economic Development Annual Report. I would be remiss if I did not recognize the efforts of Sierra and working tirelessly in putting this report together. Essentially, this report is a summation, it's a summary of all the successes and economic development efforts that the community has experienced and all the opportunities in 2020, calendar year 2020. Needless to say, 2020 was a challenging year, but in spite of a challenging year, St. Charles did see plenty of opportunities, and we did see a lot of development activity, economic development activity within the community. It also so happens that the International Economic Development Council has named this week as Economic Development Week. So it's a good opportunity to celebrate our successes and also to hear from the council and the committee if you have any feedback for us or if you have any thoughts or questions or ideas for us. We are also going to use the opportunity tonight, if you're willing to indulge us for a few additional minutes, when at the conclusion of the presentation of the report, Sierra would also like to walk you through what tools we have available in economic development on the Think St. Charles web portal. So we'll try to limit it to 20-25 minutes, but if we are going too long, please do let us know. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Sierra.
Good.
Good evening again. As Director Tungari said, my name is Sierra Miller. I'm the Economic Development Planner for the city, and I'll be walking us through the 2020 Economic Development Annual Report. Before we dive into the report, I kind of wanted to set the stage by first describing what exactly we mean when we talk about economic development. So We take a comprehensive approach, kind of a more inclusive approach to what we define economic development as. So the first thing that might come to mind is new retail or new businesses, and that's definitely a component of it. But it's also important that we work to retain our existing businesses, help coordinate expansion of existing businesses. And so kind of the core economic development activity comes down to business attraction, retention, and expansion. And then you have the softer side of economic development, which is rooted in creating an environment that is focused on supporting those core activities and includes things like streamlined development processes, providing a friendly and efficient experience, and building relationships. One example of the relationships that are really foundational to economic development would be the relationship between the city and the commercial real estate brokers in the community. And we recognize that they play a really vital role in filling storefront vacancies in town, and our role as staff is a supportive role to provide them with any information, verifying zoning, working through maybe code compliance issues, things like that, to help get deals made. And later on, I'll talk about maybe some of the ways, too, that we work on cultivating that relationship. When I joined the organization 2 years ago, I realized two things very quickly. The first is that the City of St. Charles as an organization collects and tracks a lot of data. And the second is that people in the community are generally very interested in what we do, but they might not always know where to go to find out the latest information. And so with those two things in mind, that really brought forward this idea of creating an annual report where we can provide this summary of all of the activity that's happened within the past calendar year. So the overarching theme we wanted to convey in this year's report is that St. Charles is a resilient community. We're recovering from the effects of the pandemic, but making really good progress, and that we're actually seeing a pretty tremendous amount of activity citywide. So we identified 4 goals before we created this report, which you can see outlined on this screen. And I thought maybe the best way to walk through the presentation was to kind of show the report and how it connects back to these broader goals. So jumping in, goal number 1 was to create a graphic and engaging report that's both educational and can be used for marketing. So we wanted to provide information that's detailed and comprehensive without being dry or difficult to understand. We know this report's going to have a broad audience that could include residents, existing business owners, prospective businesses, site selectors, commercial real estate brokers, yourself. And so these demographics were selected for their applicability to a business that may be considering a St. Charles location. So if you look at our median home value and our median household income, it's relatively high, especially compared to the rest of Illinois. And that can tell businesses that the community here might have more disposable income than some other regions, which can be a really attractive quality to locate here. Our high educational attainment shows that we have an educated population and an educated workforce. The median age of just over 40 shows that it's an established community. And this is another example where demographics going beyond just population demographics, but looking at some of those quality of life factors that can really have an impact on a business choosing to locate here. So award-winning parks and high-rated schools might not directly impact a business, but those are things that their employees are going to care about, and so they care about it. Our proximity to Chicago is always going to be an asset, but also equally to our advantage is that we're further west, which means we don't have necessarily all of the traffic complications and some things like that that come into play when you look at the more inner ring suburbs. So the second goal was to summarize departmental data into a single report. So this first spread here is the economic health page that really highlights some of the core economic development data, such as construction valuation, building permits, inspections. And I think these numbers indicate that St. Charles didn't just survive 2020, but it really thrived. And you can see that when you look at the construction valuation, which is the estimated cost of construction for all projects that received a building permit, 2020 hit a 3-year high. So it exceeded pre-pandemic levels of investment. The tax revenue snapshots that are on the right-hand side of the page, the data comes from the Finance Department. I believe it's provided by the Illinois Department of Revenue. What you can see from that annual graph on the top is that comparing 2019 to 2020 sales tax revenues, 2020 started off really strong, and then as expected, we saw a decline when those COVID lockdowns really hit in the spring. But the real indicator of resiliency is when you look at that second half of the year, the sales tax revenues were either matching or in some cases exceeding the 2019 spending. So that's a really great sign and signal for the community. The summary, trying to keep it at a high level, we didn't really dive into all the zones that the data is broken down into. One of them that might be of interest is when we look at the industrial sector in St. Charles. They saw really substantial growth in their sales tax revenue, which kind of matches the national trend that we heard about industrial really doing and performing well throughout the pandemic. It's not all good news, which is to be expected in such an unprecedented year. The hotel snapshot kind of just is one of those signals that we saw an expected decline that just unfortunately has not gotten back to those pre-pandemic levels yet. The next slide here, historic preservation. As I mentioned, this report takes a comprehensive approach to what we define as economic development, and some of you might have questioned why we would include historic preservation in this report. And there's a couple of reasons. So first, St. Charles' identity, what we in the planning profession might refer to as a sense of place, is really rooted in the historic character of the community. And so the second is in recognizing that first. The city not only has a certificate of appropriateness and landmark review process, but it also has an investment program that does directly relate to economic development. You approved two grant awards tonight for this program. And in fact, it's so popular that at the first meeting of the fiscal year, it's already committed most of the funds for the entire fiscal year. I think that really speaks to the success of that program. And I think this page does a really good job highlighting some of those high impact before and after projects of what that investment can really do to the neighborhood. And then at the real core of this report, we have goal 3, which is promoting positive stories of economic development activity. It starts out here with this map view to give a more higher visual impact to understanding that this activity really is happening citywide. It's really easy if you're a resident to maybe only notice the stuff that you drive by every day on your way to work. And also over the course of the year, it's easy to forget what projects started maybe in the spring of the past year. And so we take a look at this to recognize that there are some high-profile vacancies, especially in the East Gateway, that are attracting a lot of media attention. And we want to try and maybe shift the narrative to some of the more positive stories of economic development that are also happening, recognizing these larger residential developments that are happening on the east side that can create a synergy where new households mean new consumers to support the existing retail and the potential for future commercial development. So it all kind of connects, and trying to find a way to help people draw those bridges and make those linkages is one of the goals that we have here. Then it's just from a practical standpoint, it's also laid out in a way that all the projects are listed on the bottom. So if you're already familiar, but maybe you didn't hear about that one, you can just jump to that section and read the profiles that interest you most. So this is just a sample page. I'm not going to go through all of those projects. I think we have about 16 listed, but you each have a copy of the report. You're welcome to take that home, read through it. I suspect most of you are probably familiar with all of these, but just great to have it all in one place. And then the fourth goal, and this is maybe a more minor goal, but like Director Tungari mentioned, we are looking to submit this report for the International Economic Development Council's Award in Excellence competition. So they host that annually. seeing the 2019 award winners was really part of the inspiration and what drove us to create our report, maybe getting some inspiration, seeing what other communities are marketing and promoting. And I think that this COVID-19 page is going to be one of those pages that helps our community stand out by showing the action and investment that city leadership has taken to really help support its business community and its residents throughout the difficulty that was COVID-19. And in particular, one of the most programs that I think came out of last year was the creation of the temporary outdoor dining program, which you can see some great photos there on the right picture. But particularly the first street closure, which received a really incredible positive response, not just from residents, but from visitors who were coming from out of town and from the businesses in that area. And in fact, it was so popular that we've implemented it again for this year. So I think that really speaks volumes to the kind of environment that was created on First Street, which was undeniably a joint effort between, multiple departments, the elected officials, collaboration with the businesses and our community partners. And the long-term visioning for the redevelopment of this corner includes the potential for creating a permanent car-free environment. So I think that's something that, in a way, we've gotten to pilot with this temporary closure to see that there really is an interest for that type of environment. So that's kind of like a high-level overview of the 2020 ED annual report. And like Director Tungari mentioned, since I have you here, we're also going to take the opportunity just to walk through kind of briefly the Think St. Charles website and some of those resources that we do offer to businesses and to the community in general. So when I mentioned earlier the importance of cultivating the relationship with the commercial brokers, one thing that we did last year is we offered this virtual program, the Virtual Broker Tour, where we invited some of the brokers that are active in commercial real estate to join us for a webinar where they presented on some of the new properties that they were working with clients that were going to be coming on the market, as well as to fill us in on some of the new tenants that were occupying spaces that maybe we hadn't heard about yet. And so not only does that help us build that relationship there and open that line of communication so we're more up to date on the changes that are happening at that micro level, but it was also an opportunity for them to network with each other and make possible connections between I have a client, I have a space, and maybe we can find a match. And we received really positive feedback after that program. The brokers all really appreciated having that opportunity. And so we are definitely looking to do something like that again this year. One of the other resources that we've recently put together is the new business guide, which provides in a condensed format kind of a high-level overview of the important questions that need to be asked before you open a business here. It provides contact information and important resources, information on the grant program, and a general overview of the processes that might be required depending on whether you need a zoning entitlement or a building permit or something to that effect. So then I've got the Think St. Charles website pulled up. So the city has its government website, which I'm sure you are all very familiar with. The Think St. Charles portal is a standalone kind of secondary platform where we bring all of the kind of economic development related news and information in a way that's branded and kind of formatted with in line with our marketing materials for economic development. The most popular page that we have here is what we call the available sites. So this is essentially a database of the commercial properties that are available in St. Charles. Most of the data comes from CoStar, which is a commercial real estate, kind of like Zillow, but for commercial. And realtors who aren't marketing with CoStar can also submit an email to me, and I can add it there as well. So if you're not part of CoStar, that's okay. You can still list your properties on here. So we know that this gets a lot of hits. It's an opportunity to create some synergies. Rachel, is the screen still sharing? You're sharing the PowerPoint? Okay. Almost done. Sorry about that, Alderman Stellato, who's watching this at home. And so the other thing that drove us to transfer to this platform, it's called Location One Information Services. Previously, the city was hosting kind of a database where we just had a list of all of the properties. But what LOIS does is, because we're a unit of local government, the state DCEO pays for our membership to this website. And so our available sites are no longer just listed on our website, but they show up in the statewide database where site selectors are going to be looking. If they're looking at an Illinois location, now our sites are showing up in that feed as well, which is a really great thing. And then, you know, just some information that we know site selectors and prospective businesses might be interested in, make it easy to navigate and find. This is the last thing that I'll point out, but when we look at our demographics, we typically look at the corporate limits of St. Charles, but a few years ago, the city actually had a study done that did a cell phone analysis to determine the people who are shopping at our shopping centers in St. Charles, where are they coming from? And we found out that we're actually drawing from a much broader area. It's about 250 square miles. Further skewed a little bit to the west and more of rural Kane County. And so this is something that we can point to if someone is considering a St. Charles location. This isn't just, you know, demographics that they're pulling up online and can find for themselves, but it's a real great piece of information to be able to provide to them to show them what our trade area looks like. So thank you all for your time tonight. I'm more than happy to take any questions. If you have feedback on the report or any suggestions, I'm open to hearing it all.
Sierra, thank you so much for that report. You did an excellent job putting it together, and you know, to me, it shows like a beautiful resume. I mean, if I were to pick a candidate, I mean, when I look at the, you know, the resiliency is key, and then just the diversification of businesses just looks beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Bongard, go ahead.
I agree. The report's fantastic. The infographic, I'm going to steal. So just high level, how many non-industrial or bar and restaurant businesses do we currently have in the city?
So something specific like that where we want to know a specific category is actually fairly hard for us to track. I think most communities that report that kind of data are using a business license or registration program to kind of get that number. Mm-hmm. The city of St. Charles doesn't have that, at least at this time. And so I can use, I have access to a platform that does some estimates that are based on like Department of Labor statistics. I don't know entirely, like, you know, how accurate that is. It estimates around 2,000 businesses, and then I think the Alliance kind of has their own list of restaurants, and so we can kind of get maybe an estimate from there, but nothing that, you know, has real precise, exact numbers.
How hard is it to do economic development if you don't know how many businesses and what types? I mean, I get if they're not selling alcohol or tobacco or something, but how hard is it to do true, I mean, the information that's in here is amazing, and the data, and we're tracking a lot of stuff, but when it comes down to decision-making and planning, how do you do that effectively if you don't know how many dry cleaners you have? I don't know why I'm picking dry cleaners. I apologize. But,
I get your point, though. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of working within the framework that I inherited when I came in, and it's kind of the way that it's been done. And I think we've managed fine. Obviously, we're missing some of that precision where I think that's maybe pieces of data that could be helpful, but not necessarily essential to be able to conduct it.
Go ahead, Alderman.
Yeah.
Alderman Payleitner.
Echoing what my two colleagues have said, this is a wonderful tool, an outstanding tool for any businesses that are thinking of coming to St. Charles or for brokers to use, you know, to get out there. But to jump on what Alderman Bongard just had said, I understand we don't have a business license, we don't have an inventory, that's fine. But I'm wondering who, if it's not economic development, who's out there selling St. Charles? Are we dependent on the brokers to do that? And if that's the case, who's assuring a variety of businesses, especially in the downtown? You know, are we just dependent on brokers doing that job, or what aspect of economic development is out there selling St. Charles.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the importance of having the platform like Think St. Charles. So pre-COVID, our department would attend retail trade shows and do networking events in the community where we can be promoting St. Charles in that way. Obviously, the brokers are representing most of the privately owned leasable space, and it really is their responsibility to be attracting the tenants. But that's why that relationship is so important, because we're able to have conversations where maybe previously it was occupied by like an office space, but I can have a conversation and say, just so you know, the horizon's a lot broader. You could look at trying to attract maybe a coffee shop or, a new retailer and things like that.
So at this little, the broker coffee or whatever you said, that's when those conversations happen then? That's when you reach out to brokers and...
It's more frequent than that. That's kind of like the catalyst environment. But being able to get in front of them and kind of make those introductions, they'll call me directly now and say, hey, I've got a lead on this. Do you think that could work? And I'm able to, from a zoning perspective and from that way,
So for the most part, so it's still brokers that are selling.
I think they play the primary role. The city has a role, the St. Charles Business Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce, all of us work together to kind of drive that underlying mission of economic development, new businesses, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
Do you need better guidance or clarity from the council about what they want downtown as far as like business diversity, what we're looking for? Because it sounds like you're depending on the brokers, like maybe they're bringing something and maybe that doesn't fit the vision of the council or the residents or...
Okay. So let me take a stab at this one. So essentially, I think there will be an opportunity to obtain more feedback from the council, and I would call it the strategic planning process that I'm assuming the city will undertake possibly the end of this year or next year. But having said that, we also live in a free market here, capitalism, right? And privately owned properties. So as much as we would really like to be influencers and really strongly influence what specific user actually occupies a specific space, there are limitations on how much a municipality can dictate that, because that property is privately owned. We can dictate that through other rules and regulations such as zoning, because we allow a list of probably 10 or 15 or 20 types of uses, but that's the extent to which we can take it. I think where the council could also be of assistance is your residents and business owners in St. Charles. And I've said this before, that no one individual or any group of individuals can do economic development for the city of St. Charles. Of course, I carry the title of Director of Community and Economic Development, but I play a small part in that ecosystem. I think it's the other stakeholders that can also are the eyes out on the street for us and the ears out on the streets for us. Through your contacts and connections, if you guys hear of someone that's looking for a specific space, it's not unusual that I will hear from residents, business owners, council members, where they may say, we know of so-and-so that needs 5,000 square foot of space in this general location. And Rita, do we have anything that's available on your database? Or do you know of someone that may have something available? Or do you know of a business that may be looking for a certain space? So it's relationships, contacts, and connections. But as Sarah accurately pointed out, nowadays a lot of that business, much to my chagrin, because I'm from a different generation, it's happening electronically. Site selectors, businesses, corporations know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for statistics and quantitative information, which is why we are starting to target that and push that through our web portal here. Cold calling just does not work. People don't have the time to talk to us. Retention visits, we may reach out. People prefer email, they prefer phone calls, they prefer Zoom. That's just the world we live in these days. So we just have to adapt to that world. But unfortunately, we don't really have that kind of influence on dictating which user occupies which space specifically most of the times. In terms of your guidance, We'll take any feedback you have, but there will be opportunities for that goal setting, for that visioning, I would say, a variety of properties here in St. Charles that the city may own and may not own, but also through the comprehensive plan and strategic planning process. And I'll turn to Mark and Chris here if, or Mayor Vitek, if there's anything more you would like to offer as well. If there's anything I didn't cover.
No, I think overall this is a good snapshot of what we're looking at right now, how things are flowing right now. Thank you so much for putting together the report. Go ahead.
I'll stick one question in. Under the demographics, again, this is laid out beautifully, by the way. It's like Cliff Notes with details. I just think it's very, very nice. But under demographics, and it could just be me thinking about this a little bit too much, but you talk about the population, it talks about the households, and it talks about the average median age, which is just shy of 41, and you had stated that that means we're a mature or established community. Does it need to talk about family size, household size at all, or in reference to the schools? Because I guess for a number of years, St. Charles seemed to be really courting a lot of families. Families were coming here. And I guess if I'm looking at this, I'm not seeing that one way or the other. So I don't know if your thoughts are on that, if that came up in your planning meetings for this or not. But for some reason, I'm thinking about the schools and the number of people that kids and the number of people that live in a household.
Yeah, that specific question I don't think came up as we were working through the report, but it's a good recommendation because St. Charles does have a reputation of being family friendly, and maybe we can do a better job of promoting that piece there. So yeah, I'll definitely take that note.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was businesses that might just be attracted to the fact that there's still a number of kids here, or the schools.
Yeah.
It does talk about we have great schools, so that's all in there.
So we're hinting at it, but maybe we could be more direct about it.
Oh, no problem. I was just curious about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. More questions? Go ahead, Alderman Baumgart.
So, would your team find it helpful if council started to pursue some sort of conversation around business registration moving forward? I'm purposely not using a certain word like, fees or license and that, but some sort of process that helps us understand as an economic community who's doing business in St. Charles. Would that be something that your team would find beneficial?
So like I said before, I think that could be useful. It's not essential. I think we can work under either format. So that's really maybe a decision and a conversation for you all to have. And I will await that direction and,
like it's not holding us back. Like it's not something like, what I anticipate in 2021 and beyond is you're going to find an incredibly competitive marketplace. St. Charles isn't the only municipality around that's building, fun restaurants and bars and residential developments, which is great. It's going to be competitive out there, and as you get a handle with all these different departments and teams working together for a common goal, having an idea of who exactly is here, that's more than just, who you know and what emails and who visits your website, but having a registration. But I also am not interested in, taking on a big project if we think we're okay, but asking the question, because I know it has been brought up, in the past, and, we've looked at things and it hasn't gotten there, but we're definitely in a new space. And if that's something like, yeah, actually that might be very helpful, or, we need more information.
So my experience having worked for 3 administrations here in the city, I'll probably be a little more candid with the committee if I may. I believe it would be useful, it would serve the city of St. Charles well, to have some form of business registration or licensing, whatever name you want to give it, program. Again, as Sierra said, having that information is important. Having that information, having our finger on the pulse on what's going on in our St. Charles market, our St. Charles region, what types of businesses, what's changing in the business community, vacancies. Again, what we've found is that, not here in St. Charles, but another community where I worked about 25 years ago, there were businesses that occupied spaces illegally, intentionally and unintentionally, and they didn't comply with the zoning. There would be a use that wasn't allowed in a certain spot, and if there is a registration program in place, you catch that. We have a variety of licensing programs here. We have massage licensing, liquor licensing, different kinds of licensing. Business registration, business licensing kind of can bring that all together in some way. From an administrative standpoint, there are benefits, but again, we've lived with it without it for so long. You know, we can make do without it, but I believe that the benefits would outweigh, you know, the costs of a program like that. You know, if the city were to consider it down the road, that would be my opinion.
Go ahead, Alderman.
First. Oh, I think Dan wants to talk.
1 second. Alderman Petrella first.
I want to commend my colleague, Alderman Bongard, from bringing this up. Rita's probably got deja vus. I know we've talked about this actually before. So on a personal level, I'll just come out and say it. I support that concept and have for several years. And, you know, we don't have to put a price or anything on it. It could just be a piece of paper. You know, so that's my 2 cents.
1 second. Yeah. Alderman Stellato, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, actually a comment. This has come up in the past several times, and you have to be careful because it could be perceived as anti-business versus pro-business. It's another layer of government you're putting on somebody moving into the community. But I think what I'm hearing is you're not looking for fees. You're not looking at making it maybe mandatory, but there is licensing in other municipalities that they have where every time you move into a space, you have to have a building inspection, a fire inspection, a fee has to be paid. That's not going to send the message I think you want if you want economic development. Now let's take that back a bit and say, if we just say we want you to register, tell us what your business is and what you're doing, that's one thing. The other thing we've done in the past is we have hired outside marketing firms to come in and tell us exactly what our needs are. And we came up with a description probably 15 years ago where we said, we need a furniture store. We needed a Best Buy. So then we went out and actively hunted that type of business, which I think is the ultimate goal here. It's to fill space with needs that we have in particular areas. But be careful that we don't go, the message isn't sent that we're not open for business, because that could be what's coming up in a retail environment that's already very, very cautious right now. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Thank you. Alderman Silcotis, you had a question?
Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily want to license them. I don't want to charge them, but I just want, what's their address? What's the name of the business and what they sell? That's all I need. That's all I think we need to know. I'm not going to pry into anything else about it, and I don't want to charge them for it. But I think that'd be a good first step, is to do that, to see what we have, and then discuss what we would like.
Okay. It sounds like Alderman Bongard would like to set up an ad hoc committee to work on business registration with the vice chair of Alderman Petrella. That's what it sounds like. Any more discussions on that or comments?
Go ahead. I'm just going to throw the wrench out there. Could you do some research and see what other municipalities, I mean, the least burdensome example of what we're talking about, like literally a memo or, 5 questions or something, something like that. Yes.
Yeah. And to add to that also, clearly there'll be a cost involved, so we need to have that. Chris is nodding in the corner. Yeah, this kind of thing has a cost, so that's part of it. And the secondly thing is Alderman Stellato's suggestion of an outside marketing firm doing that same kind of thing, as opposed to seeing who we have, saying what we need. So maybe we have something to compare it to.
Yeah, that's something that as staff we can look into and bring back to a future meeting and maybe look at some options.
All right, so what I'm hearing is we want to advise staff to look into what other communities are doing in informal.
What's out there, yeah.
What's out there,
Kind
just
of
to
do some
kind of, okay.
research. Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Discussion.
End of discussion. So we have no additional business. We have no executive session for today. I need a motion and a second to adjourn. So moved by,
Move for adjourn, to adjourn.
Second.
so Alderman Petrillo will move to adjourn, and Alderman Wirball seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.